you that is embodied in who you are, and that you will take that into your classroom and inspire the young people that are going to be sitting in front of you. And so please feel free to put some questions into the chat later as we proceed through this particular process. Now, as teachers and aspiring teachers looking to get into the teaching profession, let me firstly and foremost say to you that being an inspirational teacher, being a teacher is in itself a noble position that you have taken in society. In the past, it used to be referred to as the noble profession. Let's not change that. Let's keep that to be what teachers should be, and that is being part of a noble profession. Yes, we do have challenges in our current environment in South Africa, and so our teachers are faced with a number of challenges, and I've put up that particular slide there. Can somebody just give me a thumbs up to say that you are seeing the slide in full? Thank you. So I don't want to scare you, but I also want to sketch a reality for you. And this is not a situation in all our schools, but it is, and it has happened in a few of our schools. And I'm sure if you're on social media that you would have picked up on one or two of these incidents. And it is, you know, first and foremost, unacceptable for a young person being in, whether you're in a primary school or in a high school, for a young person to do what some of these young people have done to our teachers. So as an aspiring teacher, it becomes important for you to be aware of where it is that you're going, who are you going to be teaching, and to be familiar with your surroundings. And so I've presented this particular slide just to give you a sense of, you know, how some teachers deal with some of these matters, and hopefully after today's session, we won't worry with any of these things. You don't need a helmet when you go into the classroom. You, in fact, need to be a teacher with a book under your arm, a few notes under your arm, and a pen in your hand, or some chalk in your hand, or maybe a laptop, whichever school you're going to find yourself in. And so the question is, why did you choose to become a teacher? You know, what is your why? What has made you want to enter into this noble profession, just based on that little slide that I showed you previously? Why do you want to expose yourself to these possibilities? And I'm saying to you, having taught in a classroom in one of our township schools for 30 years, it is probably the best thing that you can do in your life. You know, you're never going to be a millionaire, and let's understand that. So why did you choose to become a teacher when you know you're not going to become a millionaire? But you're not going to become a millionaire in terms of your rands and cents, but you will be a millionaire by your interaction with your students and what you see from your students when they leave the school. So one of the best things that you see happening is when you go into a mall, when you go into a restaurant. I've met some of my ex-learners at the airport, and the first thing they come to you, if you've inspired them, is to come to you and say, "Good afternoon, sir. How are you? This is what I'm doing." And they want to tell you. So whether they a cashier in a shop in the mall, or whether they have a profession that they are involved in, or whether their own entrepreneur, they're a business person, they just want to share that with you. And that is what makes teaching such a noble profession, but more importantly, where you stand tall as a millionaire, because those thank yous that you get, those acknowledgements that you get from your learners, is what should be inspiring you to be the best teacher that you can be. And so when I ask you the question, what is your why? Why have you stepped into this particular profession? You need to be answering that particular question with, I really want to change the lives of the young people. I want to inspire them to be the best young person that they can be. I want to inspire them to become good citizens of this country. I want them to really open up a path for themselves and for their families. I want them to really begin to make changes and be change agents in our country, in their communities, so that South Africa a better place to live in. And if that is your why, then you're in the right space. So you don't have to leave this particular webinar. You are in the right space. You don't have to switch off. You can just stay with us and work through some of the statements that we'll be making this afternoon. So the why becomes important because when you are faced with the challenges that I've shown you in the previous slide, you're going to ask yourself that particular question: why am I in this space? Why did I put myself into this particular space where I could have done something else? And so it becomes important that when you reflect, that you in fact know that you need to come out of your position a little stronger. And so if I look at that why, and we've answered that particular question, then I want you to look at who you are as a teacher. And a teacher is someone that is a professional. If you get your teacher qualification, your PGCE or your BEd degree, then you are a professional. And if you are a professional, then you need to act as a professional. And so there's a clear line between you, the professional, the teacher, and the young person that you are teaching. You cannot be the friend of that child. You can be the best teacher to that child, but you cannot be the friend to that child that you're going to be communicating with, let's say, on social media. So what are the things that I'm looking at when we're talking about professionalism? Firstly, you've got to look the part, right? Under normal circumstances, I wouldn't wear a tie. But I thought, okay, this afternoon I'm chatting to aspiring teachers, so let us look the part. Let me look like the professional that I am, and the professionalism that I want to showcase to you this afternoon. And so that becomes important. Note that the tie doesn't define me as a teacher, but it then says very clearly that I'm the professional in this particular space. So always look the part. So whether you a class teacher with a normal teaching subject, normal content subject, then you've got to look the part, to dress correctly, to look like you are the professional. If you're going to be doing a physical education class, then you must look like the physical education teacher. You've got to be dressed in a tracksuit or in a shorts, whatever the school allows you to do, that is the way you should be attired. If you're going to be in a science lab, then you need to be wearing your lab coat if you have one. And if you don't have one, perhaps it would be a good idea to purchase one so that you look the part. The children must know, if I want to be a scientist, that is what the scientist looks like. And so looking professional and looking the part is a very important part of who you are as an individual. Now, why do I say that? Remember, every classroom you walk into, there are easily 40, 50 learners in that class. And I would not want to dare to go to the statement of saying perhaps there may be 60 learners in a class, and I hope that you are not exposed to that. But for example, if there were even 30 learners in your classroom, remember you standing in front of 30 young individuals, and all of them are going to scrutinize you. All of them are going to look at you and they're going to say, oh, so this is how Sir looks today. Oh, sir wore that shoes yesterday. Oh, ma'am had the same bag yesterday. Or ma'am didn't iron ma'am's skirt this morning. Whatever. There are if you're teaching in a high school, you're going to possibly see 6 to 7 classes a day with an average of 30 learners per day. That would give you 210 young people that would have looked at you during the course of a single day. All of them are looking at you, all are looking at whether you are dressed correctly for standing in front of them. And so looking the part becomes very important. Added to that is the issue of bringing energy into that room. As a young teacher, as an aspiring teacher, and so whether you're young or whether you are in your middle ages, it doesn't matter. If you are going into a classroom, you've got to bring energy into that space because you're dealing with young people that are energetic. They're looking for you to inspire them. So I have never seen a teacher teaching a class that does not have energy. If that teacher doesn't have energy, then you're not going to get very much out of those learners. Because if you are energetic, it means you have the energy to connect with your learners. And that is what learners are looking for. They're looking for a connection. I remember there was a teacher at the school that I was teaching at, and he went by the nickname Slow. Okay, so I don't think I need to unpack that for you, but the learners had come up with that nickname because this teacher took forever to move from the staff room to his classroom. And so they used to call him Slow. Um, and so he wasn't bringing energy into the classroom. And so you find yourself in a situation where you almost feel sorry for the learners because that teacher is not bringing energy into that particular space. Now, why am I saying and repeating the issue of energy? Remember, today, young people can get the content that you are going to teach them. They could get it within 10 seconds from their smartphone. And so if you're dealing with a package of content, those learners can pick up that content within 10 to 15 seconds of the lesson that you want to deal with or the content that you want to deal with. All they do is they go to Google and voila, there they have all of what it is that you want to teach them. And so unless you're bringing that energy into that space, you've got to ensure that you have captured your learners. And let me give you a bit of advice in terms of the energy. When I make reference to energy, the energy that you have in your first period must be the same or similar level of energy that you take into the last period of the day. I'm saying that because if you're not bringing that same energy into any of your classes after the second interval, then you are doing a disservice to those learners that you're getting at the back end of the day, because they deserve the same energy that the learners that got you in the first period. They require the same level of energy from you. And so it becomes important as a teacher, in as much as I'm saying you're bringing that energy, that you need to pace yourself so that you have the same level of energy at the end of the day. Because if the last two classes are not getting the same energy from you, then you're doing a disservice to our learners. I touch on the issue of punctuality because that is about setting the standards. And I'm going to touch very shortly on the issue of having your own personal brand, because that must form part of your personal brand. Being punctual, being reliable, being prepared is all part of your personal brand, because the learners are looking out for any shortcomings in your makeup, in your personality, and they will look at any opportunity to exploit that shortcoming. So, for example, if you don't come to the classroom on time, if you're not punctual on a daily basis, the learners pick that up. And so the day that they don't come to your classroom on time, you have no leg to stand on to say, but I told you you must be in my classroom at that particular time. They will turn around and will say, sir, but you were late for this class or you were late for that class. Don't give the learners the opportunity for doing that. And so it becomes important that as teachers that we are punctual. We must be prepared because the learners are the first people that will pick up immediately that the teacher is not prepared. They will know who you are, they know your mode of teaching, and so they will pick up the moment they understand that you have not prepared for a particular lesson. So lesson preparation becomes important. And so when you're walking into that classroom and you are well prepared, let me say to you, if your resources, for example, the tools that you're going to be using, your data projector, there's an issue of load shedding. As a good teacher, well-prepared teacher, you'd be able to improvise. And so that becomes important because you know your content, you know what it is that you want to teach. And so even though the tool is there to help you, if anything were to happen, you would be able to improvise and continue still providing a good lesson. What do I mean when I say stand tall? Stand tall meaning you know you're well prepared first and foremost. You know the content that you're going to teach. And so you are able to walk into any room with the confidence that you are the best teacher for those learners at that particular point in time. And so you must never feel that you are not in a position to do the best for those learners. There must be a willingness on your part to want to learn. And so as a teacher, you're always learning from others. Sometimes you can speak to one of your colleagues and say, can I sit in your classroom? I would love to see how you teach this particular topic. Can I invite you to come and sit in my classroom? And then you give me direct feedback after the lesson. And you must have the confidence to be able to have anybody in your classroom. Don't do like one of my ex-colleagues did. At that time, we had inspections. So there were inspectors that came around to your schools. And so the inspector came. And at the time, we had the overhead projectors. And hopefully you're young enough or old enough to remember an overhead projector. So the teacher then put up an overhead projector, prepared the sheets that they were going to put on the overhead. But because the teacher was not using the overhead projector on a regular basis, there were a whole number of glitches. Couldn't put the slide on correctly, couldn't get the focus right, so the focus wasn't clear, and amongst a whole host of other glitches that kicked in because the teacher was not used to using the data projector. So when the inspector came in, the teacher wanted to impress, but you can only impress with what you do on a daily basis. And so all of these things that I'm outlining to you is part of who you are, and it's going to be part of your brand. Respect is critically important. And here, when I talk about respect as a value to who you are. So firstly, respect for yourself as an individual, respect for the confidence that you have, respect for your colleagues, your fellow professionals, but more importantly, respect for your learners. Colleagues, you cannot walk into a classroom and be disrespectful to the learners. Even if there's a learner that is rude, that is out of sorts, you cannot disrespect that learner. If the learner disrespects you, there are channels and mechanisms by which you can address that. Please keep your hands in your pocket or put your hands behind your back. But if there's any disrespect shown from the learner side, you then need to deal with it in a professional manner, because the first thing that learners do is to run to the police station or run to the administrators, who are then going to they have to act, and they're going to charge you. So respect goes a long way. respect for knowing what it is that you need to do as a professional, but also respecting the individuals that you are dealing with. Grab as many opportunities as possible for you to teach. So I trust that you're not working full-time in your studies. So if there is an opportunity for you to teach, whether it's at the local school, whether it is a school that has been allocated to you by Unisa, try and grab every opportunity to teach, because the more you teach, the more confident you're going to get, and the better you're going to know the content. And so you would be able to improvise if there are challenges, because you know you've taught before, you've practiced, and you are able then to handle a particular situation. And then the last thing I'd touch on there is etiquette. So what is etiquette? Etiquette is the values that drives us as individuals. So we now make reference to those values, and when we're talking to etiquette, it is about greeting. So your learners come into your classroom, what do you do? To me, one of the first things that I've done over the years was to have all the learners stand. So we don't come out of the same home. So the last time I saw this group of learners was yesterday or the day before, depending on the timetable. And so when they come into my classroom, everybody stands and we greet. So that's etiquette. I don't eat, I don't chew gum while I am teaching, or when I'm greeting my learners. I'm not finishing my coffee in the classroom while I'm addressing the learners. That is not good etiquette. And so when we're speaking about etiquette, is to set good standards of behavior, good standards of manners that you have, so that the learner can learn from you. You are the role model. And so it becomes important, all of that making up the professional that you are. And so that to me touches on what I refer to as your personal brand. I have a brand, and my brand is to be consistent. My brand is to be punctual. My brand is always to look the part, to look professional, and to act in a professional manner. And so when I came to the session here today, I was already sitting at my computer, setting up. I'm sitting in a boardroom at the education department. And so I already set up my computer. I had already ensured, instead of using the department's Wi-Fi, which is sometimes unstable, I rather brought in my own dongle, because that is who I am. That's part of my brand. I don't want to be let down, and I don't want to let you down. And so that is part of my brand. I contacted one of the organizers at about 25 to 12, and I just said, are we all good? Is everything set? And she indicated to me that we are all well prepared and we are ready for action. And so that is part of my brand, to be prepared, to ensure that everything is in place. There are going to be no technical glitches, and I'm ready to roll when the clock hits 12 o'clock. And so that is part of my brand. So it needs a strong narrative in which quality is not just an empty word. So I'm making reference to whatever we do, it must speak to excellence. It must speak to quality of what it is that I do. It must speak to consistency, and I'll touch on that shortly. So what do I mean by your personal brand? And so your personal brand is how you see yourself, okay? You need to be confident in who you are, but also how others see you. And so I've put up two pictures there, of one where I'm standing with the technical director of SAFA Cape Town, Mr. Bobby Solomons. Maybe some of you will know him. He's a former professional footballer and also a professional coach. He's coached in the professional leagues in the PSL. And we were doing a physical education workshop with teachers. And so, as I said to you, you've got to look the part. And for a physical education workshop, I needed to be in a tracksuit. And so that is who I am. If I look at the second picture, I'm teaching teachers in that particular space. I'm having a conversation with them, a workshop with them. And in this instance, it is around teaching content. And so I need to look like the professional that I am. And so when we're talking about your personal brand, it's about how you see yourself, but also, more importantly, how others see you. And so what does that mean, how others see you? Because your learners are going to respond to your personal brand. They know you're consistent. They know you are well prepared. They know you're always going to be punctual. So they're never going to run late to your classroom because they know you're going to be there when the period starts. And so that becomes very important in terms of getting the learners to buy into your brand, because your brand is going to stand them in good stead. Your brand is part of the role model that you are. Your brand is what makes up your DNA to be the inspirational teacher that you are. And so, what are the things that make up your brand? Your appearance, okay? And yeah, I said look the part, but also your general appearance. If you're a male, are you shaving every day? Are you shaving every second day? Um, are you sure that your hair is all in place? If you're female, making sure that you are well groomed before you step into that particular classroom, because learners are watching you all the time. Your body language. Remember, I said energy. So you've got to look energetic. You've got to bring the energy into the classroom. And so if you had issues at home, whether your spouse, with your girlfriend, with your mother, whoever it is that you're living with, you cannot take that into the classroom, because that is not part of your brand. Your brand is the learners always see you for who you are in terms of you being the professional. And so that is what you produce when you're standing in front of them. How do you communicate? If you have had a bad day in the morning, you don't take that bad day experience into the rest of your day. The learners know who you are. You're always going to be smiling. Even if you had an argument with the principal or there was a disagreement between you and the principal, you don't take that into your classroom. You're always organized. You know what it is that you want to achieve during a particular lesson. The learners know if you're going to be using a data projector, everything is in place. There's a screen. Your slides are all sorted out. And so the learners know that that is part of your brand, that you are a well-organized individual. You're always coming there with a good attitude. No matter what your circumstances are, you're always showing them a good, positive attitude. And I want to pause on the next one, colleagues, when I speak to the issue of social media, because I'm going to share a little bit on the social media issues. So here's what has happened in today's society. And that is that we have a tendency, and young people have this tendency to engage on social media. Now, what social media does is it allows you and it allows individuals to make statements without fear of any repercussions. They can make statements, they can say what you want because there's no feeling to it. You're not looking somebody in the eye and making a statement to that particular person. You're putting things out into your social media, on your social media pages that could impact on others. And remember at the very beginning, I said, the child is not your friend. You cannot be the friend of the child until that child is out of school. Then you can have a relationship, a friendship relationship with a child once he or she has completed school. But whilst they're in school, you cannot get them onto your social media pages. And also speaks to what do you post on social media? And one of the things and this is what I can't understand, is you take a picture, or should I say, people take pictures of their supper, or they go to a restaurant and they take a picture of their meal and they post it on social media. Now, your audience may not be all your friends. And so if your learners are connecting with you on your social media pages, then you've got to be mindful of what you put on social media. And so I make reference, and I'll show you in your next slide what I make reference to when I talk about your social media pages, because as a professional, your social media needs to be professional. And so for you, when you're applying for a post, if you complete your studies, you're going to be applying for a post. Can I just say to you that even if your posts are private, even if you've made it private, there are people in companies, in schools that are able to work through that privacy, that firewall that you put up. People can work through that. And so do not post anything on social media that is going to be controversial or that is not going to make you look good. So colleagues, be mindful of the social media. Then excellence, as I mentioned, as part of your brand, excellence it's not an empty word. It is something that you protrude. It is something that you live. It is something that you show and demonstrate on a daily basis. And so your learners will understand that, and your learners will respond to that. You have to be resilient, colleagues, because you may find yourself in a school that is not well resourced. It doesn't mean that it should negatively impact on your teaching methodology. Yes, we would all love to be in a school that is well resourced, where data projectors is in every classroom, that there's a smart board in every classroom. And so we would all love that. But unfortunately, in South Africa, currently, there are still very much in a situation of haves and have-nots. And therefore, we must be open to improvising. We've got to be resilient. We don't become victims of circumstance. The school doesn't have a data projector. I don't have to teach with a data projector on a particular day. Yes, it can enhance my lesson, but if it's not available, then I still need to make my lesson a very exciting one. And so you need to be resilient. You need to be creative, and you need to think critically about what it is that you're doing. Remember, you want to shape the minds of the young people that you are teaching. And so you need to demonstrate that resilience. You need to demonstrate the creativity, because the learners are going to take that from you. They're going to want to learn from you. And it's always important to have a positive mindset. Again, I said, we don't want to be the victims. We don't want to play victim. We are positive. If I don't have a data projector, I can still continue presenting an excellent lesson. And so I want to go back to the issue of social media. Colleagues, social media, when you post anything, I'll refer to it as your digital tattoo. Okay? Unless you have the resources to completely remove it from cyberspace, whatever you have posted, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Facebook, whether it's TikTok, it's going to remain there. Unless it is very controversial, then the platform may remove it themselves. But if it's not, but you're making ugly statements, it will remain there. If you're taking pictures, and I see this often with young people, there's always these hands and fingers pointing in particular direction, etc., etc. I'm just doing that demonstration for you. Why do we have to show fingers? Why do we have to show these signs? Because if you've taken the picture with that sign and you post it on social media, colleagues, it remains there. If you're standing around the fireplace with a couple of beers in your hand, it is going to remain there if you put it on social media. You're not going to be able to remove it. And so when you're making applications for posts, colleagues, promotion posts, or you just want a teaching post, please note the schools and the school management have people that are well tuned to using IT. And so they will get into your social media pages. Just be mindful of what it is that you post on social media. And I'm not saying don't be on social media. I'm on social media all the time. When we were still looking at the start of this particular program, this webinar, I had already taken a photograph of my computer. And what I'm doing currently, I'm taking a photograph of the screen. I'm going to post it on my social media pages. I post directly, and one of the people that picks up on my social media is the MEC for Education in the Western Cape. I post to DBE because they part of my links. So it becomes important that you use social media to the benefit of your learners, to the benefit of the teaching fraternity, but not use it as a means to degrade other people or to put issues in the social media space that attacks other people. Please be mindful as a professional, as an inspirational teacher, there must be no fingers pointing back at you. And so when I talk about the issue of your confidence, I've looked at three components of that particular confidence. Firstly, your inner confidence, which is your mental well-being. You know your content, you know what it is that you want to do, and so you can step into any classroom, whether it is a grade 8 class, whether it's a grade 12 class. You have the mental capacity to be able to deal with the top class and also with a difficult class. And so that inner confidence becomes very important. Then is, of course, your outer confidence, who you are. How do you walk? Do you stand tall? And when I say stand tall, it's actually physically showing good posture, that you're not slouching when you're speaking to the children. You're not sitting behind your table when you are teaching a lesson, but you're moving around, you're engaging them, you're chatting to them, you're moving from one corner of the class to the other corner of the class. You're standing in front of the learners, and you're also standing behind them whilst you're busy teaching them. And so your appearance in terms of how you look professionally, but also how you conduct yourself becomes very important. And then, of course, colleagues, your professional confidence, the knowledge that you have the ability to make every lesson an exciting one. And I want to believe that all of you that have taken up this profession, that you are coming in with that professional confidence, meaning that you know your ability to be able to deal with any group of learners, whether they're the top learners in the school or whether there's the stragglers at the school, you are able to handle all of them. And so the DNA of that inspirational teacher, I make reference there to unleashing your enthusiasm. I'm hoping that as we chatting here this afternoon, that you are sensing that level of enthusiasm from my side as a teacher. Even though I'm here as an education official, I'm still a teacher, always will be a teacher. And so when you're stepping into that classroom is to unleash that enthusiasm that you have. That learners must feel it. They must know when you're stepping into that room, this is who Mr. Solomons is. This is who Mr. Davids is. This is who Mr. Chabalala is. They know exactly who is in front of them because they know you are an enthusiastic and an energetic teacher. You bringing that energy into the classroom. Be consistent. And so what do I make reference to when I say be consistent? How you deal with learners, how you step into the classroom on a daily basis. I mentioned earlier the issue of if you have issues at home, when you're driving into onto the school premises and you step out of your car in order to move into the school building, then when you're locking up that car, you're leaving your issues, your personal issues, you're leaving behind in the car. And so you're stepping out as Mr. Chabalala, the enthusiastic, the energetic teacher. And so it becomes important to be consistent in your mannerisms, to be consistent in how you teach, and also when you have to assess the learner's work, that you are going to bring that consistency in. Not today I'm mad at these learners and I'm going to mark them down. No such thing in your vocabulary. You must be consistent in how you deal with learners in particular scenarios. If you have a difficult learner that you're dealing with, you deal with that learner in a very professional manner. And tomorrow there's a top learner in your class, you deal with that learner in a very professional manner. So it's two different learners with two different behavior patterns, but you're consistent in how you manage them. You don't favor the one over the other. Very importantly for you as a teacher, build your personal brand. And so I've outlined to you what that personal brand is. Consistency, reliability. Your colleagues, can they rely on you? If you have to hand in a question paper, do they know that you will complete your question paper on the due date? If you have marks that you need to submit, will you provide the marks on the due date, or must the whole system wait for you to hand in your marks because you haven't completed on the due date? So all of those things form part of your personal brand. And so you need to live that so that people respect you for who you are. Make the connection. Making the connection with your learners is critical in the teaching profession, meaning the learners know who you are. The learners understand if they come from difficult homes, that you understand them, you connect with them. If they come from very affluent homes, you teach in an affluent school, you're still connecting with them. You don't favor them over other learners. And so making the connection with learners becomes important. Making connection with their parents is also very much part of the teaching process. And then making the connection with your colleagues. Can I learn from my colleagues? How can I share what I have with my colleagues? How do we improve what it is that we do? All of these things speak to who you are as a professional, but it also speaks to your brand. I make a statement there and I say, stay fresh. Okay. And so what does that mean? When I say stay fresh, is to be up to date with all of the latest trends in education. Be mindful of what is happening. Be up to speed with new tools. Are you using AI? I've got a program that will produce a worksheet for you in 10 seconds. All you need to do is to state the subject that you're going to be teaching, which grade it is, and what is the topic that you're dealing with. And the AI tool will provide you with a 10-mark worksheet, depending on how many marks you want. It could be a multiple choice worksheet, and it will kick out a worksheet for you in 10 seconds. And so you as a teacher, you need to stay fresh. You need to know that there is such a tool. And if such a tool is available to you, how do you use that tool? You need to know what are the new physical tools, smartphones. What is the latest trends in smartphones? Can I use a presenter? You know, the clicker, as I'm presenting to you, if I were to have a face-to-face conversation with you, I would have a clicker so that I would be able to walk around in the room and click on my slides. Do you have that? Can you use one of those things? Can you use a data projector, or do you have a tablet where you can now make changes on what the learner see on the screen from your tablet? You don't have to walk to the front of the room to go and do any changes at the computer, at the laptop. But if you have a tablet, the tablet is connected and you are then able to make changes as you're presenting the lesson. And so when I say stay fresh, I'm making a reference to being at the cutting edge of all the developments within education, but also the developments in technology. And then, of course, don't be a victim. And I've referenced that before when I'm saying if you're in an under-resourced schools, don't let that damper your enthusiasm. If the principal is difficult, don't let that damper your enthusiasm. Because if you become a victim of circumstance, then your learners are not going to get the best of who you are. And so at the end of the day, our responsibility as teachers is to be the best that we can for those learners that we are teaching. Remember, we are in the business of changing minds. We are in the business of shaping those minds. We are in the business of creating hope. And therefore, we cannot be and we cannot play victim based on circumstances. We've got to always look at what is the positives that I take out of a ugly scenario. What is the positives that I can use in order for my learners to think critically? How can I take a ugly scenario and change that into a learning moment so that my learners benefit from it, I benefit from it, and my colleagues can benefit from that as well. And so that becomes important in terms of knowing and understanding. And so I want you to adopt the ABC of victors. And you know what victors are? Victors are champions. And so the A is for attitude. Always have a good attitude as a teacher. You've got to have a good attitude. You've got to have a positive attitude so that the learners are taking that energy from you in order for them to be able to perform to the best of their ability. The B there is for be bold, meaning you're standing tall, you go into the classroom because you have the inner confidence, you know what your abilities are, you are able then to do things and to challenge your learners. Be courageous, the C in ABC of victors, and that is be courageous. Try something new in the classroom, but something that you would have thought of before. When you bring in the resilience because there are glitches in the system, then be courageous in terms of starting something new or being innovative. And so you must have the courage to be able to do that. Don't become the victim. So when I make reference to fear talking about doubt, delay, and division, you could either use fear and say, face everything and rise. That is FEAR, face everything and rise. Or forget everything and run. Which one of those two are you? Okay. Are you going to stand there and say, I'm going to change the scenario? Or are you going to say, whoa, let me take my bag and get out of here? Do not be the victim. Ladies and gents, it's important to understand that we need to be the role models of those young people that are going to be in front of us. And so just some of the best current teaching techniques that you can take into the classroom. Your flipped classroom, I think you all understand that. And that can be both physical and it can be demonstrated in how you change the scenario in your class. So flipping or flipping the classroom means you change around the classroom in terms of how it is, how the learners sit in front of you physically, meaning you can change it from cinema style to a horseshoe shape, or you can put the desks or the tables together and have group work, whichever is going to work for you. But it's just looking at how you set up your classroom. Design thinking refers to anything that is innovative, things that have not been used in the past, but that is going to make changes to where you're at currently. Self-learning is important not only for yourself, but for the learners. Gamification refers to what you can do in terms of making the lesson exciting. And so you can turn the lesson into a game, and it doesn't have to mean it needs to work. Gamification is just about technology, but it can also be a physical activity. I've touched on social media, and so you can use social media as part of your lesson. Artificial intelligence, colleagues, we cannot run away from AI. AI is there. Use AI to enhance your teaching practice. Project-based learning, getting the learners to do things in a more practical way, and then that is where we want to take teaching. And buzz groups, brainstorming, role plays are all different techniques that you can take into the classroom to make the classroom an exciting space and place to be in. Colleagues, here is a book. The book is called Teach Like a Champion by Dr Ismael. And in the book, there are quite a number of techniques that you can pick up on that will enhance your teaching. It speaks to the essentials of teaching. It's creating a strong classroom environment, and it is building character and trust in that classroom, but also setting, very importantly, setting good standards for your learners. And I think when we look at all of that, then we get very excited. And if you read through Teach Like a Champion, the advice given by Doug Lemov can only stand you in good stead. Colleagues, I want to say thank you very much for staying with me throughout this 1 hour of my presentation. And as you can see, I've kept it down to the 1 hour so that we are still able to manage if there are any questions, but also not to get you to want to switch off your computer and run for a cup of coffee. I hope that I've captured you and that we are able to learn from one another in this particular regard. So, Professor, I'm open to if there are any students that would want to ask a question or two before we close.
Dr. Teladia, thank you. I'm Dr. Kanyila. I'm not professor
okay.
yet.
Yet. Dr. Kanyila, it's a pleasure.
To our students, do you have any questions for Dr. Teladia? Any questions? Okay, one question. Does the university find a school for you? You can find it yourself. Yo.
Well, that I think that is I think that is for the university to respond. But if the university requires assistance from us in the education department, then we will gladly assist. There's a question from Simpiwe. He had his hand up.
Good morning. Sorry, good afternoon, talk. I see I was just added to the group. I'm a Unisa master student, but I decided to join the link. So am I also part of the program, or it was just an accident?
No, you're most welcome to ask the question if you want to. If there's a statement that you want to make, I'm sure we are open to learning from one another.
Okay, no, my question was that should I complete the masters if I'm interested to become an educator? What are the procedure or steps to take?
Well, if you've completed a master's degree, or you're in doing your master's currently, and you have any teaching subjects in your undergraduate degree, then you have to complete the PGCE. So once you've completed the PGCE, that qualifies you to be a professional teacher, and you will then obviously be paid accordingly. But if you want to get into the teaching profession, you have to have the teaching qualification, because that gets you to register with SAIS, the South African College of Educators, and that is the professional body for teachers. So that would be the process.
Thank you, sir.
There is another question from Miss or Mr. Davids, does Mr. Teladia offer other workshops? Do you offer workshops?
Yes, we do workshops mainly for in-service teachers, that is teachers that are already in the teaching profession. And that is open to your pre-service teachers as well. So students like yourselves that are studying, you are most welcome to join any of the workshops offered by the Education Department.
Thank you. Another question from Bongega. Where can we get the Teach Like a Champion book?
Well, you could go online or you could go to your closest bookshop. I'm sure they will provide that for you. So check online if it is available online. Otherwise, your bookshop, and I'm sure Unisa's library should have a copy of it as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I wanted to do B.Ed, but Unisa gave me BSc.
Okay.
What do I do if I want to teach after my degree?
Oh, wow. Let me say to you, if you do a PGCE after your Bachelor of Science degree, you're going to walk into a post because we require science and maths teachers in the country, qualified science and maths teachers. So you're in a good space. Please follow your BSc up with a PGCE. And I'm sure you can speak to the good doctor to get you registered for the PGCE.
The postgraduate certificate in teaching. Also, another question. I'm also registered for a BA in history and psychology, but would love to go into teaching.
Well, both of those subjects or courses that you're doing are to some extent school courses. So history is a subject in school, so you definitely be able to get into PGCE. Psychology is the basis for doing life orientation. And so if you do a PGCE, one of the modules that you will do with psychology would be life orientation. So yes, there is a platform for you to go into PGCE. So it sounds like you are doing the courses, all of you, and let's go into the PGC as your next step, so that you can step into the teaching profession. We require more teachers and we require good teachers.
I think that's the end of the workshop. Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Teladia, for your insightful and thought-provoking presentation. Thank you. Your message has offered our students a clearer understanding of what it means to practice professionalism as future educators. Wow, thank you. We appreciate your time, and your passion and knowledge have truly enriched this session. Thank you so, so much. Let's give Dr. Teladia a warm round of applause. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor and Doctor, and thank you to the students for sitting in this particular webinar. And I'm looking forward to seeing you entering the teaching profession. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all of you.
Thank you. And to our students, all the best for your exams, eh? Thank you. That's the end of the workshop. Thank you so much.